the conversation. This is something that, of course, as Joyita pointed out, we see around ourselves as well. We don't necessarily need a UN report for this realization that a lot of young couples today who are running double income homes are still deciding to only invest into, say, one child, or perhaps not have children at all. And a lot of that sometimes also stems from the fact that it is just, as people say, extremely expensive to have children. I don't think it's necessarily just about women not wanting to give up a so-called freedom. All of our mothers, I had a working mother, and she's managed to raise 2 children and still have a career. So I don't think it really just boils down to demonizing women and saying that because more women are joining the workforce or more women are wanting to earn an income, therefore they're choosing not to have children and sacrifice freedom. I don't think that that's the case. That could be for some people. But Mithali, I want to understand from you, the government then also perhaps, do you feel, need to take some steps in order to make it an environment that is conducive for young couples who are earning well to be able to afford to have more than one child in a city. Today, the school fees itself for a single child is something that people really have to think about. So there are so many little decisions that are involved in having a child, and I don't think it simply boils down to a fertility rate coming down in a UN report.
No, absolutely, Devika. That's very, very correct. And there are a number of issues that, you just pointed out. The first point I'd like to make is, with respect to women's labor force participation and the care economy. Overall, when we look at it, the life cycle of a woman's labor force participation, and Nicole Associates has done a lot of work on this, we find that childbirth is the point at which we see the maximum dropout of women from the labor force, right? The first child may not always result in complete dropout, but the second child is really when women start to drop out completely from the labor force. Now, what is happening today is pure economics, right? On one side, you have cost of living that's going up. You need to have more and more women stepping into the labor force, not just for economic justice, but today as a means of economic necessity and for middle class and lower middle class households to even survive, particularly in urban areas, right? So you will have women who will have to work. Secondly, you don't have any kind of childcare facilities that are even available. The lack of affordable childcare facilities and the lack of affordable daycare centers creates a situation where a woman has to rely on her parents, mostly her mother or her mother-in-law, and every single category of women that you talk to, ranging from a domestic worker to an informal worker in a factory. I'm in a factory area today and I'm speaking to a lot of women workers over here. All of them are telling us they are reliant on their mothers to actually take care of their children. Right, so this is the second big deterrent. The third big deterrent is really around the fact that you will see a change in aspirations, right? And like you said, the cost of bringing up a child. This affects the upper middle class and even the richer people of the society who say, you know what, I want to invest in having one child because that one child is what I can spend 1 to 2 crores or even 3 crores for their higher education, send them abroad, make them very successful professionals. Obviously, I can't do that for 2 or 3 children. So, there are a number of considerations, but I'd also like to say that, I don't think that this is something to be alarmed by. I don't think that this is something in which we have to ring alarm bells and say, oh, it's going to be 1.9 and that's going to be the end of our population, or start to say that this community versus that community or this caste or this religion is, having more children or not having more children. We are having, certain amount of workforce enter into the labor market every year. Can we make that workforce more productive? Can we reduce the inequalities in the labor market so that those who are marginalized, especially women, but also persons with disabilities, persons, who don't have access to the best skilling and educational resources, we have to make sure that they become more productive for our workforce to go as far as possible. I don't think that at 1.9 there's any reason for alarm bells, because Japan, South Korea, etc. are sitting at 1.2 and 1.1. And they're still having, a sort of situation where younger people are coming into the workforce even now. And what I'd like to conclude with saying is it's all about gender equality. Why does South Korea or Japan have such a massive problem of low birth rates? It's because men are not pitching in to do childcare. Men are not pitching in to do elder care. There is active discrimination against women in South Korea. Even the Ministry of Women has been abolished in South Korea. So, we really have to, as a society, guard ourselves against that sort of hatred towards women, which we are seeing in countries like South Korea and Japan. Really, our culture of Nari Shakti, our culture of respecting women is what can take us forward, and we can create a society which is far more gender equal. That is the real answer to this problem.
Okay, Dr. PSV Rao, then bringing you into the conversation, sir. Another part of the UN population report, and if we can put out my screen.